I'm Rocky Reswal, and I'll be talking about moving from web to mobile development, what are the options we have, and just give you some overview of the various technologies available to us developers so that we can make the transition easier, and also give you a small demo of a couple of technologies. So just a few words about me. I'm Rocky. I've been developing software professionally since the last almost 10 years now. So I started off with Java, did Java exclusively for 7-8 years, then got bored and then started learning Ruby, and then after that a couple of other things. So all in all I know nothing, but just know the overview of many things. If you want, you can connect with me on Twitter. I really like Twitter and use it a lot. And you can also read some of my blogs. A few of the applications that I'll be demoing are available on the Android market, like Google Play. So if you just search for in.rockyj, you'll get all of the applications that I have built. A couple of them which I will demo. Cool. So we all know this, right? Mobile is everywhere, right? So just a couple of days back, I was reading a post, like a news article, and it was saying that Google is claiming that there are 900,000 Android activations every single day. Like that's close to 1 million Android phones being brought and activated a single day. Over the Christmas period, within 5 to 6 days, there were like 25 million smartphone activations in the US alone. So you can imagine what the situation is like. Gartner is predicting that the mobile software market would be close to $5 billion within a short period of time. So mobile is everywhere. Like in India, I think Android is picking up really well. Almost everyone has Android devices or a smartphone. Can I see your show of hands if you have an Android or an iPhone? Cool. So I think most of us have either Android or an iPhone. So mobile is everywhere, and now whenever I talk to some customers, they're like, I want a website, but I also want the mobile version of the website, or I want a web app, mobile app, because their web application without its mobile counterpart doesn't really work. So us as developers, we cannot ignore mobile now. So you cannot say that I know web development, I know application development, but I know nothing about mobile development. You will be in real problem in the future, because companies are looking for people who know a bit of mobile development at least, so that at least you can build a basic homepage or a basic application on the mobile from where you can at least see or demonstrate or link to your actual web application. So mobile is something that I think none of us can actually ignore. But the problem with the mobile space is there is so much choice, right? So to begin with, the first choice I think is iPhone, iOS and Android platform. Okay, I zero down to iOS. Then you have iPhone, 3G, 3GS, 4, 4S, each with its own resolution. Then you have iPad. I've heard that a mini iPad would be coming soon. If you go to Android, it's pretty even more crazy. Like each company is manufacturing its own Android device with its own resolution, own screen size. Even in the tablet space in Android, there are tablets from like Galaxy Note, which is kind of like a mini tablet, to a 7-inch tablet, to a large 10.5-inch tablet. So the problem is like there is so much choice, there is so much segmentation in the market that for us developers, we don't really know what to do. So anyone remember this image, Matrix E? Matrix movie? Yeah? So this is the second movie where Neo goes to the room and he meets the architect of the Matrix, and he gives a very good speech. I remember the speech, but I'm not going to say it. Anyway, the crux of the speech is that the problem is choice. Because there are so many choices, we really don't know what to choose. And the purpose of this presentation is to give you an overview of the choices that you have as developers to move on to become mobile developers, where you should pick up one choice or the other, and I'll give you a small demo. Okay, so first step, if I want to become a mobile developer, what are my basic options like? What platform? Let's forget the platform. What technology or what sort of an application can I build? So the first choice is a mobile web application or a mobile site. For example, the BBC mobile site. So if you go bbc/co.uk/m or /mobile, you see the same BBC site but now optimized for your mobile phone, because the mobile phone has a smaller screen real estate. So you cannot just view the whole BBC site very easily as you would on a desktop screen. So these are web applications that are customized for your mobile or tablet. Then you have native. Can you still hear me? Okay. So then you have native applications. Native applications are like the applications that the platform supports or recommends, or the API that the platform provides. For example, iOS has, you have to use Xcode and Objective-C to create these mobile like your mobile applications, and then Android you'll have to use the Dynamic JVM, Java, and the Android SDK. And then the third option, which we are going to talk a lot about, is the hybrid application. Now, the hybrid application is like something like application that is native, kind of native, like it runs as an icon on your mobile phone. It's not like that you have to open the browser and type in an address and then go to the mobile version of the website. But it's like a website that runs as a, let's say, a native application. I'll give you a demo. I think most of you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then I'll give you demos. So like native hybrid application is like something between the middle. It works like a native application, but it's built like a web application in HTML. So yeah, these are the three options. So the native application is like pure SDK, pure like the in the language that the platform supports. And the hybrid application is like it has a native component and it has a browser pane in which the application is embedded. So it's embedded in WebKit or something like that, because mobile phones usually have browsers that support the WebKit engine. So WebKit, yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, so mobile, like your browsers are usually WebKit based or Mozilla based, and then there's IE, which is crazy, but let's forget about that. And then you have finally the web applications, which are like the BBC version or the CNN, all those sites that I'm talking about. Okay, so let's talk about mobile web applications. As I said, like the BBC site. Now CSS3 has something called media queries. So what you can do is in your CSS, you can say in CSS3, you can say depending on the type of the resolution of the screen, select the size of the divs or the images or whatever you put in your normal CSVs. So this is something that is called responsive design. And what this enables you to do is not write different versions of the site. So for example, some people say like go to abc.com from the desktop, but from the mobile, go to abc.com/mobile. Now that's like something I really don't like, because there's no need to do that, because if you use responsive design, the CSS will automatically detect the browser's resolution, and based on that detection, you can change the CSS components to change the design of the site. So please do use responsive design. I think all of us need to do that, because every site that we build from now on, the customer is going to open the iPad and see it in the iPad. And if it doesn't look nice in the iPad, he's going to ask you to change it. So might as well start using responsive design from the very beginning. So these are easy to build, of course, right? These are like, we build web applications, most of us. So nothing new really required except for responsive design. So a lot of new skills are needed. Best for frequently updated content. So you have a news website, a bulletin board. These are good cases for these like the web applications, because you don't want the user to like give him a native app and give it a refresh button, and the user is like tapping the refresh button furiously to get new content. You don't want that sort of situation. You don't need to go to the App Store, right? That's a big thing, like especially for iOS. Every application that you submit to the Apple market, like the App Store, sorry, so that needs to go through an evaluation and a Apple evaluates it and says that if it is okay to put it on the market or not. So there's no need for mobile web applications to actually go to the App Store, because people can just type http mywebsite.com and they will see the application. And you can host it like a normal website. You can have Java, PHP, Ruby, .NET, anything that you want. But the problems are like it has no offline capability. So if the user loses internet, which is a lot of times, at least in India, like people are outside network coverage, they don't have 3G or Edge. So these applications just won't simply work. So are you guys with me so far? So far so good? Yeah? Is it interesting or is it boring? Because I can see a lot of faces that are blank. Anyway. So yeah, and you cannot use device features in web applications, like, because it cannot detect your camera or the orientation that you are holding. Probably the browser will detect the orientation, but you cannot use the accelerometer or GPS or whatever. And it doesn't create the best of impression. So if a customer says, I want a good-looking app, and you give him a mobile web application, he won't be very impressed. Like, people want that icon on their screen, which they can tap and actually go and start the application. Or actually, that can be done with web application. You can add a bookmark to your home screen for that application. But still, like, it doesn't really work without internet, so customers are a bit like not really happy. But this is okay. I mean, there are cases where this is okay. So again, like, choose wisely. Now, native applications, like all of us know, these are the thing, like these are the tools to use to build native applications. Objective-C for iOS, it's ugly, it's really bad. It's like going back to the 1990s where you have to allocate memory for objects, deallocate memory for objects, all those sort of things. Like, if you like it, yeah, no offense. I mean, but I tried to use it and I was like, declare variable at the top, allocated memory, deallocated memory when you have done using it. Android is much better, it is much like Java. But the problem is, if you have to develop an app, then most probably you have to develop it for Android and iOS. So now you have two code bases. So you have to maintain the two code bases. Or you can target one of the markets. You say, I'll just go live with iOS right now, which a lot of companies do. But Android is growing pretty well, so who knows when you have to build the Android app. So Instagram is one example. Like, they only had the iOS app for a long time, but then they built the Android app, and in one day they had like 18 or 20 million downloads. So yeah, if you want to go with just one platform, it's up to you. Again, choice is yours, but you'll be missing out one of the big markets, either of the big markets. But it gives you best-in-class performance, because the SDK and the programming language that is provided with it is built for, like, the iOS Objective-C combination is great. It's great for graphics, it's great for performance. You have to manage the memory yourself. Apple reviews your application that it doesn't consume a lot of memory. All those things are there. So the native app is great for performance, will work offline of course because it's native app. It gives you a native look and feel. So when you create a button in the native programming language, it looks like your platform's button. So we all know like what an iPhone button looks like, what an iPhone back button looks like. So all those things you get for free. You don't have to really design the buttons in the way that they look iPhone-ish or Android-ish. And you can leverage the full platform API. You have access to compass, camera. You can start the app when the user clicks a photograph. You can start the app when the user receives a message automatically. All those things come with it. You get the whole, you get all the power that is available to you through the API. But, like as I said, there are new languages to learn, APIs to learn. There are very few people who know iOS and Android both. So most of the time companies have to hire an iOS team and an Android team to maintain two versions of the app, so the cost goes high. You maintain two code bases, you try to maintain the code bases in sync, so if feature X is released on iOS, you want feature X to be released on Android also sooner or later, or at the same time. So this creates larger teams, longer shipping time, multiple code bases to maintain and keep the code bases in sync, and of course all of this is costly. But yeah, still it gives you the best performance and the best graphics. So if you have to build a game, for example, you have to go with the native app. It's not really easy to build a HTML5 gaming application. I mean, it's possible, but you won't get very good graphics with it. Okay, so now a favorite which we talk about most is a hybrid app. So it's built with a framework. I'll give you a summary of a lot of frameworks that are available. And you build one code base, and the code base works on both Android and iOS, BlackBerry, Windows Phone, all those things. It enables you to do quick development because you're developing on your known technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Some frameworks provide you APIs to access the hardware features like camera, compass, all those things. It gives you a decent performance, so the performance is lesser than the native app, but it can be reasonable if you are really careful. And you can customize the look and feel, so you can still make it look like a native app, or you can make it look like a slightly more jazzier version of a web app. But yeah, negatives are it doesn't perform as well. It's mainly good for form-based or simple UI apps. So most of the applications that we build in enterprises or as normal web application programmers are like, the customer says, I want a version that works on the mobile and syncs the data between my actual web application and my mobile version, right? So for example, you create an entry from the mobile version. After a while, when you log into the desktop version or the normal desktop browser version, you should see that entry already there in the database, right? It cannot be like the mobile has a separate database and the actual application has a separate database. So most of the time, these applications are good for those purposes, like create a form on the mobile where the user can do some simple entry, and the report can be generated on the actual web browser. But you also become dependent on the frameworks and their stability. So for example, you decide to use framework X. Now framework X releases a new version, and the code base, like the API completely changes, or they provide some new features and remove some old features. So now you have become completely dependent because some of the features that you were using are out. You need to refactor your code base if you ever need to upgrade. Android releases a new version, iPhone releases a new version, and some of the functionality of the framework breaks because the SDK has changed something. So all those things come into the picture.
This is because the frameworks are very new.
Yes. So most of this is like not very mature, and none of this is like officially supported by the companies. Like Android doesn't say please use framework X for hybrid application. In fact, iOS at one point said if an application is not built on native code, we will not allow it on the market.
Yeah, imagine they would be trying to promote their own.
Yeah. But then there was a huge hue and cry from the developer community, like we cannot develop all the applications on iOS or native Java, so they rolled back that decision. But yeah, as I said, like sometimes, like for example, Android Jelly Bean comes out. It's not very popular, but let's say it comes out and it is popular after next 2 years. And PhoneGap, for example, doesn't work on Jelly Bean due to some restriction on Jelly Bean. Then you have to kind of port your code base onto a different framework because PhoneGap no longer works on Android Jelly Bean.
But if you see more and more what is happening is browsers will give the capability of what PhoneGap gives today. So this will become a de facto in WebKit itself after a couple of years. Because right now you have got this, PhoneGap follows the API set which is more or less following what W3C prefers, navigator.camera, navigator.location. So not everything is in W3C, but eventually after a year or two, PhoneGap will die, like Google Gears died, and become part of W3C.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree. And like, I don't think it's a bad proposition to use a hybrid framework, because the first benefit, as I said, it would give you is like app would work both on Android and iOS with the single code base. So you develop a lot faster with smaller teams and everything works. You don't need to like synchronize the features between the two versions. And I think more and more people are using hybrid frameworks because of the problems I listed with the native code. Like that, they are too big, and these problems like porting the code or something breaking, they can be fixed like in a week or in a couple of days. But creating a whole new version of the app on Android and on iOS, and let's say tomorrow Windows Phone 7 becomes popular, although it feels unlikely, but then they'll have to create another version. So all those problems are there. So people are happy with the hybrid apps. Okay, so now let's look at a few frameworks that are popular in the market for building hybrid frameworks, like hybrid apps. So far so good. Everyone okay? Any questions?
hybrid frameworks, do they have access to the native stuff like the camera and navigation as well?
Yeah. So depending on the framework, for example, PhoneGap has access to like hardware features like camera, compass. Titanium would have a couple of other frameworks are there which might not have, but you can bundle them with some other framework.
So if you use these frameworks, do you have to go through the App Store, or can you is it built for a browser?
No, I mean, I'll give you a demo. What it does is when you click on the icon, it creates a WebKit instance, and your application is embedded in that WebKit. So you code in HTML and CSS and JavaScript, but it opens as like a normal app. And I'll show you the demo.
So it's like a specialized browser.
Yeah, it's like a specialized browser. It's like a cut down version of the browser just for your app. But the user doesn't know that. User feels that it's like a normal app.
So it's a native application ultimately. Yeah. It's just that you have to go to App Store and everything.
Yeah. But Android going to App Store is just very simple. Like just create the packaged bundle of the app. It's called .apk. Upload it to the market. You have to give them 5 or 4 icon files, like of different sizes. I'll show you. And just upload the whole set and the app is released. With iOS, you do the same things, but the icon sizes are different, of course, so that's a pain point for developers. And then they actually review your submission. So yeah, and you can access the native features depending on the framework. So one of the, yeah.
Is there a plugin required for the browsers to support this?
No.
Like, as you're talking about that not all browsers are actually going to support navigator or camera or this is not a standard, right?
Yeah, so what he was saying is that tomorrow when HTML5 makes these as standards, then Android and iOS will have to support them. So then there is no need for a specialized framework to access these capabilities. Or that specialized framework will just use HTML5 to access these capabilities. So the point we're trying to make is that there is no plugin required. What happens is that you get a JavaScript bridge, for example, to access the native API. Look at it that way. So the JavaScript bridge works both on Android and on iOS. So you talk to JavaScript, JavaScript talks to the native API. So something like that. So Titanium App Accelerator is one of the most popular and it's kind of very enterprisey right now. It's been partnered with SAP. So you would be like in safe hands, I would say. If you are very skeptical that the app company might close down or something, or the framework might die, then this is a good option. You code in pure JavaScript. There is no need to write even HTML or CSS because Titanium will provide you the JavaScript API to build, for example, buttons and things like. All of us have worked on Swing. Most of us have worked on Swing, right? So what does Swing do? Swing gives you a Java API to create window components, right? So similarly, Titanium App Accelerator would do that. It would give you a JavaScript API for the phone's camera, compass, all those things. The API changes, but it's like it's adding more features, removing, so just be a bit careful with the version that you're using. It can also generate native UI components. So when you say, for example, titanium.ui.create toolbar, okay, what it will do is it will create a native toolbar because it knows its API and it will generate the native toolbar. What that does is it gives you a good look and feel. It looks like a normal toolbar and it's also fast. It's not a HTML5 toolbar, right? So hybrid applications can also be like a screen is divided into 3 parts, right? Usually there is a top bar, there is a bottom navigation bar, and in the center there is the content. So what you can even do is the top bar and the bottom bar are like native. The links are to HTML files which is shown in the center. That is like if you want to roll out your own custom piece of code that uses the hybrid as well as native framework. So it has a lot of add-on libraries are available to access Facebook API, Twitter API, create games, use graphics, things like that. So it's a pretty good option. But you have to use Titanium's IDE and toolset. So they have a customized version of Eclipse, Aptana IDE, something like that, and you have to download that, use that. You cannot use your normal text editor. Everything is there in this IDE. The build is made with the IDE. It is deployed with the IDE. So you don't have much options. And the JavaScript API can be cumbersome. Like those of us who don't know JavaScript, first of all, I would say learn JavaScript because the future is JavaScript. Because the server side would be JavaScript one day and the client side would be JavaScript one day. So learn JavaScript, and once you learn JavaScript, even then you'll find you might sometimes go like, what is going on here? Why is this code not running? Because if you don't give a variable, like you don't say var a is equal to something, a becomes a global variable, and then things mess up completely. So you miss 3 letters and you're screwed. So just be careful of JavaScript. But this API can be more cumbersome because it's like API. Imagine using String API in a dynamic world where there is no static typing or anything like that. Nothing to help you. So you don't know what the methods are. You open the HTML to see what the methods are. In Java, you just press dot, control space, and you see all the methods. So those sort of things are not available.
Maybe I missed it, but is it paid or is it free?
Free. Everything is free. Whatever I am telling you is free. There are hardly a few paid hybrid frameworks. Sometimes what they do is like they create a supported version of the framework. Like framework, like you pay something and they say that in case things break, we will give you personal support or something like that. But as us developers hardly use that. Yeah, if a company is like very paranoid, and if a company is just very paranoid, they might ask you to buy the paid version. But for normal development, it's not.
So last time I checked, Titanium was a year and a half or 2 years back, right? That time I faced the issue that the Titanium APIs in the JavaScript are very, very fragmented. Some API are only meant for iPhone, some APIs are only meant for Android.
Still the case.
UI is native, there is no HTML5 in that. So how is that seen now?
I mean, people still see it as advantage. Number one is App Accelerator is very well funded and supported right now.
The company is very good.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, so people feel safe with App Accelerator. They still feel that they are at least developing on JavaScript, so they don't have to maintain separate teams for iOS and Android. Yes, the API becomes different when you want to access the native features, but that is something they can live with.
Because last time I was checking all this cross-platform libraries, what my takeaway was that Titanium is a great company, okay, and PhoneGap is a great framework.
Yeah,
and that's what I
completely agree. Okay, next version, next framework is Corona. Corona is another decent framework. Here, the catch is you code in Lua. Now, nothing wrong with Lua. Lua is a very good language. It's very lightweight. It's so lightweight that the entire language, the compiler, interpreter, whatever, is a few KBs. So Lua has a great future. I'm telling you why. Because you can embed Lua in your washing machine, right? Isn't that amazing? Because it's so lightweight, and tomorrow as processors get faster and memory gets cheaper, Lua is a great language for embedded systems because it's so small and it's so fast. And that's why Corona used Lua, because what they do is the Lua interpreter or the compiler runs inside your phone. It's so lightweight and it's fast. So it even gives you, even though it's not a native app, it still gives you a great performance. Even works for game development. So I think a few very popular games, I don't remember, probably Fruit Ninja or something, they are built with Corona. And it's pretty good. There are a lot of add-on libraries available for game development, especially for, of course, for Facebook, Twitter integration, all those things are there. But the catch is, learn Lua. And learn the API, of course. Corona's API is also very similar to the JavaScript Titanium's API, so you have to learn the API. But you build one code base, it's very fast, it works on Android, and it works on iPhone. So if you can learn Lua in a few days, actually learning Lua is not that bad because it's very much like JavaScript, dynamic and loosely typed and all those things. Okay, third option, Row Mobile. Now, Row Mobile gained a lot of traction some time back because it's completely like Ruby on Rails. So, like it has MVC, it has a server side, it has a client side. You code in Ruby. You use all the paradigms that are available in Ruby on Rails, like the build cycle, the make, rake. All those tools are available, and it's great for applications where you have syncing. So for example, you have a server side. Most of the applications are like that. For example, I create a app where the user submits some data. I say if he's offline, store the data on the local phone storage, and as soon as he comes online, sync it with the central server. And this is a use case that is so common in every mobile application that you should not be really surprised hearing about it, because the customer will always say okay, if you're building a mobile app and the user is offline, then store it locally, and when he comes online, send it to the server. So it's great for that because it has a server component, it has a client component. You can leverage the server component to build your web application also. It has been brought by Motorola, and that's where things started being like stood up because Motorola is changing the API. Motorola's mobile division itself was bought by Google. So there is a huge churn in the team right now. But if you can live with that, I think the future is mobile because a lot of enterprises will adopt it because it is backed by Google and Motorola. So they will feel very safe with this sort of framework. Yeah, so it provides you a quick development cycle also because you code in a normal language like Ruby. So you code your normal web application in Ruby on Rails and code your mobile application in Go Mobile, and the entire team is just a Ruby team. But you have to right now live with the churn and the transition that is happening right now, or use a very old version. But who knows, that old version might break in some of the newer phones. So there's some choice there. Okay, Ruby Motion was launched recently. It's very good. You code in pure Ruby. Okay, and the Ruby code is compiled to native iOS code, bytecode. What does that mean for me? That means this gives me the same performance as a native iOS application. It's very fast. You can build games with it. It's like a bubble wrap API over iOS. So instead of using Objective-C to access the iOS API, I use Ruby to access the iOS API. It even takes care of garbage collection for you, which is huge on iOS. Because in Objective-C, as I said, you have to allocate, deallocate, release, take care of all the memory things. Us Java developers and Ruby developers, we are so used to garbage collection that we don't even care about memory, right? So it's good for that, and it's a huge innovation because imagine what this guy did. He was working on Mac Ruby, which is like creating Mac applications with Ruby. He was an Apple employee, and he left Apple, didn't do anything for 1 year. He was building Ruby Motion in like stealth mode, and he came out with Ruby Motion. Right now, this is $200. Yeah, so sorry, this is not free. It is $200 because this guy didn't earn anything for 1 year just building this. But it's extremely stable, it's getting very popular, and it's very fast. And it will work, I think, on all iOS devices because his focus is only on iOS. And that is one of the problems also. It's only on iOS right now. And I don't think he will build it on Android because he doesn't have the time. It's just a single guy, a couple of more guys who are supporting it. So it's still on iOS, but the advantage is that you don't have to use Objective-C now. You use a normal language like Ruby to build your native phone-like applications. But the catch also is like you still have to use the iOS API. So it gives you a wrapper over the iOS API, but you still have to call the API, right? So in all the frameworks, in fact, I have talked about you have to learn an API because the framework will provide you an API. You cannot do without learning the API. So it's up to you which API you want to learn. So when you build any native app, it's anyways, you don't have memory allocation. In Java, see, in Android and Java also you don't allocate and deallocate memory yourself. In iOS, in Objective-C you have to. Because Objective-C is like built like C. So C, anyways, you had to do with malloc, I don't even remember now, malloc, dealloc or whatever. So that's why.
Memory management can be better in that case.
Yeah, of course. So that's why I said when you want a very fast, great graphics, all those things, then you have to go native. Because then you absolutely want all the control of the memory in your own hands. Right? But when you are building a form-based application, for example, where user submits some data, clicks a button, show a graph, those sort of cases you don't really care about memory so much. So yeah, PhoneGap is the most popular hybrid framework. You code like a normal website in HTML5, CSS, and it gives you a JavaScript API to access the phone features. I'll give you a demo. So it has super quick development. App runs on the web view or the WebKit like emulator. The API is available in JavaScript. maybe an uncertain future, because PhoneGap guys, like you mentioned, said that their ultimate goal is to finish PhoneGap. So the PhoneGap's own goal is to finish PhoneGap because most of the features that PhoneGap provides will become like HTML5 features in subsequent years. So PhoneGap can die, and but don't worry, like it's like at least 3-4 years before PhoneGap dies, or it might not even die.
I'd like to add something over here. One thing is Adobe took over PhoneGap. It was backed by a company called Adobe. Adobe took over it. So the uncertain future, we'll have to still see how to use it.
Yeah. So I was about to touch on that. So then Adobe bought it from Adobe, who developed it. Then Adobe realized there's not much money to be made here, so they donated it to Apache.
Exactly.
Apache named it as callback. Then realized callback is too generic because callback is like type of functions. Then they renamed it as Cordova. So now PhoneGap is Cordova, and who knows what it will be named tomorrow.
So that's why I say, PhoneGap is a great framework, and absolutely is a great company. Actually, if some company like Accelerator was putting backing PhoneGap, it could have been the best.
Yeah, completely agree. And it can be slow, of course, because what happens is the WebKit browser is rendered natively. Your app is like painted on the WebKit instance. All the buttons like a normal browser renders your HTML, and so that process can be a bit slow. I mean, it's not like 5 seconds slow, but it can be like a few 1 second or 500 milliseconds slower. But on the phone, actually, some things are visible because you are focusing your attention on the phone when you are working on the app. On the browser, like sometimes, there are distractions around. So you click on another window or something like that while the app is going. Yeah.
So you mentioned about 5 or 6 frameworks basically, right? And for all of those frameworks, you said they're all great, right? And if there is a new developer who wants to get into mobile development, so which framework is the thing to start with basically?
That's the original question. The problem is choice. So I'll come to that. Just wait. Because I cannot take the decision for you. Like it's like the language wars, right? Should I use Java, Ruby, .NET, Python?
Which score more future?
Each has its own advantage depending on your user requirement and your business requirement.
Like for example, you say for PhoneGap that it may die in few.
So don't worry. Like like that's like an extreme situation. That can happen even with, like, for example, Android dying.
So when we say it dying, what we mean to say is that the APIs which PhoneGap provide, okay, will become part of HTML5. So if it dies, you don't have to include PhoneGap in your library. That's all. It becomes, so it's like saying that, let's say RESTful came first, and then Jack Harris made RESTful happen. So you had to package that in your application, but Jack Harris did become a part of JE. So you don't have to bundle it inside your application because it's available in the containers. Something like that.
Exactly, great example. Okay, I think I have given you a lot of frameworks, but I wanted to give you an overview of what's there in the market right now so that you can make your own decision. Now the problem with PhoneGap or any other, like only with PhoneGap, is like when you create a HTML5 app with PhoneGap, it doesn't look like a native app because you create HTML buttons, HTML fields. So iOS and Android forms look completely different from your web forms, right? You agree, guys? Right? So you need, if your user wants a native look and feel, and most organized user want that because they want that their mobile app to look like a mobile app and their web app to look like a web app. So then Senka Touch comes in. It provides you a JavaScript API again. So it's kind of like Titanium, but like not comparing it. Titanium is a JavaScript bridge. But what this does is using JavaScript, you create HTML components. Again, Titanium is using JavaScript, you create kind of native components, but here you create HTML components. And so they look very native. I'll give you a demo. And they can be paired with PhoneGap. So PhoneGap will give you the native icon and Senka will give you the native look and feel. Confusing or okay? Confusion?
So I mean, does it look native or does it?
Yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah, so in short, PhoneGap is only the bridge and Sencha is the UI. So you have to use it together. So Sencha would typically sit on PhoneGap.
Yeah.
That's how you think about it.
So PhoneGap will give you the like the WebKit view, but the HTML will be rendered through Senka.
It's a UI library.
But you can also use Sencha in a normal browser, right?
Yeah, that's the advantage. For debugging and development purpose, you can just keep using your normal Chrome or any WebKit browser like Safari. Keep developing. Once you are okay with the UI, deploy it to PhoneGap and check.
Have you tried using Sencha for making both web page and native?
But you won't use a web app for it because the web app would look very iPhone-ish or Android-ish. So it will look like the blue toolbar and the big text boxes and the big button that you're used to on iPhone.
So the mobile versions, yes, probably. The mobile version of the website, you might use Touch.
Yeah, exactly. But for the not for the desktop version. So that's like that would look like very weird.
So if you use Sencha, you can use the same code on for your m.xyz.com and also package it in iPhone and Android.
But then we will not be maintaining two versions.
No, source code is the same. Okay, it's that if you want to download the application, go to the App Store, do that. If you don't want to do that, then you just go to the browser and it redirects to.
Like the first version I talked about, the mobile web application. So you can build a mobile web application. It will look very much like a native, except that it's not launched from an icon, but from the browser.
This customization is happening only by CSS, right? So the look and feel that is being achieved is only by
Not with Senka. Senka gives you, like I said, JavaScript API to create UI components. So you don't really play with HTML or CSS.
you don't play with it, but actually the look and feel Sencha would be kind of ultimately helping it.
It's like you don't want to go there. If you want to customize the look and feel, you're better off with just PhoneGap. Just create a normal HTML, CSS, JavaScript app. Use whatever CSS you want to use. There are CSSs available that can make your buttons look like a native button. But again, those CSSs are like not very mature right now.
So Rocky, I'd like to add something over here. When you talk about websites, your desktop websites are very, very personalized. You know, you would like to have your own look and feel and everything for that. And that's for the market where your websites or web applications are a primary, source of primary services. When you're trying to go from there to mobile applications, people would like to use standardized things on mobile applications, the same look and feel. So if I'm using one application and I'm using another application, I would like to use the same paradigms for everything. So mobile applications are more standardized, desktop applications, browser applications are more personalized.
Exactly.
And that's what IntelliJ comes into picture. So you don't have to worry about whether I'm adhering to iOS human interface, okay, or does it look good on Android, or does it play well with all the mobile phones. So when you use this, you can forget this. That's why this saves cost a lot. That's what I would say.
Yeah, exactly. So like every website looks different, but every mobile app looks almost the same. Like the buttons all look almost the same, the form looks almost the same, and that's what Senka can help you achieve. There are more frameworks, but I won't go into detail of all of them. There's Trigger, which is right now my favorite. Kendo, Dojo, Takes, and Silicon Valley guys are crazy, so they build new frameworks every week. Okay. So should we do the demo first? Now I think you have a lot of questions that can be answered by the demo, right? Okay, so here is a PhoneGap app. It's like a normal Android app, but the magic happens is like there's this Cordova or a PhoneGap jar. It's renamed as Cordova, as I said. You add it to your dependency. In your source, all you need to do is, this is your primary activity. Activity is like your first screen. You say load URL for an HTML file. For an HTML file. Okay, and now in your something like in a configured path, you have a normal HTML file. I hate Eclipse by the way. So here you have nothing but normal HTML code. You add the Senka libraries. So this app is built with Senka and PhoneGap. So Senka provides the look and feel, and PhoneGap provides the native app. So let me give you a demo before you have more questions on this. If I now do run as Android app. So this is right now a pain point for us developers, that when you make a change, it becomes like the emulator takes a lot of time to load up. Though this is a i7 8GB machine, still it's like slow. I mean slow by developer standards, not slow by like usage standards. So this is an app that I built. It's like a flashcard vocabulary app. So you get these words, and you can guess the meaning. Abstract, not clear, right? Click on show. Theoretical, impersonal, abstruse, hard to understand, abysmal. Just a quiz. Anyway, so yeah, this is an app, and it's not there on the Play Store, and it's a normal phone app. So there, if you see, this is actually like a native app. So it has an icon, and when I click on this icon, it opens a WebKit instance. It's very fast, and it renders the HTML, CSS, and you kind of feel that it's a native app. And you see the toolbar at the bottom which says back, show, next, the buttons, the 3 buttons. Those are all generated by Senka, and they very much look like your native buttons. So you include all the basically JavaScript libraries. There is a Senka, there is a PhoneGap JavaScript library. So this PhoneGap JavaScript library will somehow talk to the PhoneGap jar, right? It acts as a bridge, and the PhoneGap jar talks to the Android SDK to give you the native functions. That I think that is somehow that will work, but you don't have to really care about it. So this is a simple app. Yeah. So I say, so this is JavaScript, right? So I say when the app launches, call main launch. Main launch, I check that the device is ready. If the device is ready, then I call show UI. Show UI, I just set a variable count as 0. I read. So these are my words. These are just stored in a normal JSON format, right? So there is a ID, there is a word, and there is a meaning. This is a JSON object, right? And this is a JSON array. So now I say get all the words, okay? Store them in an array called word list size. It's a dynamic language, so you don't declare the type. I create some HTML so that I can show that question panel, right? This is the question panel, the white box with the black background. Then there is an answer panel, but it's not shown initially. And basically the idea is when you click on the show button, it will go to the JSON, see what's the corresponding meaning of the word, and show it in that plain box. So I don't want to give you a full-on tutorial, but that's how it is. So you code in HTML, JavaScript. You want the look and feel to be different. You do some CSS.
Can you show this one in iPhone just to see the?
Yeah, actually, this is a Ubuntu, so I won't be able to run it on because I cannot get the iOS emulator, and that is the problem actually. When I started using the frameworks, I have not deployed any of my apps on iOS because although they would work, first you need a Mac, then you need Xcode, which is like 4.2 GBs of download. Okay, that's fine. I can put it on one night. Then for the first time, you have to register with Apple for around $99 or $150 to get a developer account. And then you submit your app for approval, and after 1 week they tell you change this, you change that, and then it finally goes to the market. So it's a bit painful on the App Store. Google registration is there, but it's like $25 or $50 one time, lifetime. And then you just submit your bundle app on the Play Store, and it will appear in a couple of hours. So
the emulator the frameworks do not provide any emulator to see how the app will look and feel on different, like Android SDK provides these kind of emulator.
Yeah, so like you point the PhoneGap API to the Android SDK. So this is my SDK. SDK bundles the emulator. Problem with iOS emulators are they are bundled with Xcode. So unless you have Xcode installed, it doesn't work.
There's another way of doing that. There's a plugin called as Ripple. You know about
So
it?
there's another way actually. You have if you buy an iPhone, you don't buy a Mac, you buy an iPhone. Connect your iPhone via USB to your Linux machine or something, and using some certificate signing or something, you actually use your hardware iPhone as the emulator.
No, I'm talking about that. I'm talking about another one which is from Tiny Hippos, which is a Chrome extension.
Okay.
So it's a PhoneGap emulator actually. Because you're putting all this in a PhoneGap, what you can do is you can just use a Chrome plugin. It doesn't emulate everything, but at least when you want to see, okay, let's say I'm changing my GPS location, would my Synthetic application sitting on PhoneGap, would it go to some place, or if I'm changing my, accelerometer, compass, does it follow things? So that's another way. Tiny Hippos has Ripple as a Chrome extension.
Yeah, I mean, since it is a problem, I am definitely sure someone in Silicon Valley is solving it, because they would give you some sort of Chrome plugin or some sort of a thing which will emulate iPhone or
Yeah, because
Android.
it is more important during the development cycle that you like to see things that.
Right now it's a pain point because if I make a change in my code, I have to redeploy the app, wait for the emulator to redeploy, start the app, and the cycle is can be up to a minute or a couple of minutes. So that becomes painful because at that time you're like, okay, what do I do now? So we want quick response cycle, and that's what Ruby became popular because of that, because you could we don't have to even restart your server when you make server-side code change. You just refresh the browser and you see the change. And like JRibble, they became popular just because of hot deployments. So we want quick feedback cycles. Right now, there is a huge opportunity in the mobile space for that. But you'll have to mess up with the SDKs, OSs, and all those things. Okay, so yeah, all the buttons, so you create a button in Senka, you have a handler, so when the button is clicked, what will happen? So it reminds you kind of like Swing, right? But here you are using JavaScript. And as I said, Senka is just for UI, so it is used for rendering these buttons, the toolbars, all those things. It's not rendering native components. These components are HTML5 components, but they look native. If you want native components with JavaScript, use Titanium.
It will be faster actually.
It will be faster, yeah, of course, because it's a native component, so the button response would be faster. But I mean, unless you are very paranoid,
Exactly.
it doesn't really, you don't feel the difference here. It doesn't matter. So, is it okay, or do you want to go dig down more into code?
For the UI you use and then the actions which are performed, that's PhoneGap.
Okay, so when I don't use PhoneGap with Senka, I cannot package this as a native app. Because Senka is nothing but collection of JavaScript and CSS. So I can create a mobile version of the website with Senka. So you say /m and it looks like this. And a normal web page looks like a normal web page. But how do you package it?
Hey Rocky, can you also show the Sencha website? Because there's some really good demos on.
Yeah, but I think you guys can go home and do that. So I will be short of time also,
Sure.
but yeah. But I wanted to give you an idea of what it is. Is it okay, or you have a lot of questions? Then I have completely failed. It's okay? Okay. Because I think I'm getting the feeling that I've covered a lot in a very short span of time, but that's how it is. So this is app 1. Another thing which I want to show you, which I find really good, is Forge. And Forge takes away a lot of pain from us in the deployment cycle and development cycle, and it's faster than PhoneGap. So it provides the same features as PhoneGap, like you code in HTML, JavaScript, and you get a native app. It's from Trigger.io, which is a Silicon Valley startup. So they are not very stable right now. So let me give you a quick Forge demo. And I created this app in like 2 hours, and it's there on the Android market. The APIs keep changing, so in Forge what you do is just 3 commands. Forge create, that will create a HTML5 native app template for you. Forge build, when you change the HTML5 and CSS, and Forge run. That's it. You don't even have to open Eclipse, and that's what I love. And it's very fast because as soon as you say Forge run, the emulator starts up and the app is deployed. You don't have to close the emulator again when you do a rebuild or the run of the application. So let's see if this works. And this app is like, this is the default app that you get when you do a Forge create. I'll let the other one run in the background because it's building after a long time, and my internet is really slow. So this is the app that it gives you by default. This is using jQuery Mobile. So jQuery Mobile is like Touch. You get native look and feel, but it's slower than Touch. I didn't want to give you another option, so I didn't want to talk about jQuery Mobile. But it's good if you want, if you are comfortable with jQuery and you just want to use jQuery. jQuery Mobile is slow, number one. Number two, your jQuery will get out of hand once the app gets bigger, as happens with normal jQuery code. Then you want to use Backbone, but jQuery Mobile doesn't play with Backbone and hell breaks loose. So it's up to you again. So this is the default, like by default the app that is created by Forge. And let me say, change the header and say hello Delhi. I'll go back to my app and say Forge, oh sorry, Forge build. Forge run Android. Emulator is still running. It will reinstall the application. Start it. So you see the development cycle becomes very quick, and you I just use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it's a native app. I can prove that to you. It's fast. Okay, I hope my other app is built for now. So I say Forge run Android. Here I have not used Senka. It's just plain HTML, CSS. People heard of Twitter Bootstrap? Yeah. So it gives you a very good CSS for us engineers. You don't have to create a great CSS by hiring a designer or by working late night. So it gives you great CSS by default. And I created this app with pure HTML, Twitter Bootstrap, JavaScript, jQuery, normal, and it's like just a simple app for metric conversion, right? So how many, like 100 miles is how many kilometers? And it's a native app. Yeah. So I hope tonight you guys, all of you guys, will have a app on the Play Store because it's so easy. And the good thing with Android market is you can build a very trivial app. An app just says hello world. Not even it takes an input, and it will still be like there on the App Store within a couple of hours. iOS guys will just kick you out. They'll say, "What is this rubbish? We don't want this rubbish in our App Store." So please don't submit such content. Uh, yeah. We want to see the code for the metric converter. See, just a normal just normal CSS, JavaScript, nothing fancy. And Forge takes care of building all the Android jars and Android manifest that is needed. So you don't have to even touch a XML file or a Java file or a jar file. Whereas in PhoneGap, as I showed you, you still had to make that first activity and load the URL yourself. So I think Trigger is just a little bit better than PhoneGap, but PhoneGap, like Forge is new. So like they are so new, like they are like 3 months old. That's about it. But again, the choice is yours. So
what's the website for Forge? What is the website?
Trigger.io.
Trigger.io.
Okay, so what do I choose now? So to answer your question, like I've given you so many options, and that's how the market is. Like, and once you start building applications, then resolutions will start killing you. Right? It looks good on an iPhone, but it looks bad on an Android, and it looks good on an iPhone tablet, like iOS tablet, but it looks bad on an Android 7-inch tablet. It looks okay on an Android 10-inch tablet, but it looks bad on an Android 9-inch tablet. So I can't help you with that. That's just how the market is. But you need to ask yourself what you want. You want performance? Performance is extremely important. You have to go native. I think you can answer these questions now. Great graphics and gaming? Native. Native or Corona? Yes. Ease of development? Pure PhoneGap or Trigger? Low cost? Again, PhoneGap, Trigger, Titanium. What is your feature set? Do you require a lot of native features? Go with Titanium. Do you require a lot of backing, enterprise, stability? Go for mobile or Titanium. You are okay with using a fast under development API, but that cuts down your development cycle? Go with Forge. You can also look at the comparison given here in the slide. There's a guy called Marcus Falk, and he has given a big chart of like the native features that are available on which framework and which are not available on PhoneGap or which are available on Titanium, things like that. So it's like a huge matrix. So yeah, I've given you the demo, and I want to thank Abhishek. He's like a great guy, and he actually wrote a book on RoMobile. So he's one of the few guys in India who write books. I think we have another one here who's written a book on PhoneGap, and he wrote a book on RoMobile, and that was when RoMobile just started. So he helped me a lot with the research, because I think you guys might have realized that there was a lot of research that went behind it. Anyway, so yeah, that's it. So yeah, I think do mobile. It's very easy. Use Forge or PhoneGap and write an HTML page and just put it on the App Store, man. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. People have written a page of HTML with just movie dialogues in it, and it became a big hit. So who knows? Yeah. So give it a try. Build apps. That's all I would say. Thanks. So if you have any more questions, you can also talk about this.
If you want to build a database back app, so which platform spread out?
So like as I said, you would then need a sync sort of a mechanism. RoMobile would be a good choice, but RoMobile is right now under heavy development or transition. So just go with any HTML5 JavaScript app and use Backbone. For example, Backbone provides good syncing capabilities between client and server. So it would give you local storage also. So when the server is offline or you are not on the web, it will store local storage. So HTML5 has these local storage, WebDB, all those sort of things. So it will give you that. Once the server goes online, you sync. Of course, you'll have to write a custom code yourself. If you want to avoid that, use Roam Mobile.
So Sensitive also provides the same thing which you mentioned.
Yeah, local storage it provides. Yeah.
The other one is data-bound use.
Yeah.
Where you got use those and proxies.
Exactly. So yeah, like a lot of feature set is overlapping, but it's up to you. Like you want to choose which poison to kill yourselves.
The choice is amazing. Okay.
Thanks.